picture this. You're standing in a store, or maybe you're just endlessly scrolling online, looking at an item you absolutely do not need.
Right, like a specific brand of pour-over coffee or a sleek minimalist jacket.
Exactly. Or even just a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
You pause, and you compare it to another option that is practically identical. But this little voice in your head chimes in and says, "This is me. I am the kind of person who uses this."
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a subtly uncomfortable question. Are you choosing the things you buy, or are they, gradually choosing you?
It's such a daily habit, right? That tiny mental negotiation at the checkout counter. And we rarely stop to examine the incredible psychological weight behind it.
It really is heavy when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jean-Paul Sartre touched on the absolute core of this when he argued that human beings simply do not have a fixed nature. We aren't born with a pre-installed identity program that tells us exactly who we are.
So we have to figure it out as we go.
Exactly. We have to define ourselves through our choices. But as Albert Camus pointed out, we live in a world that lacks an inherent pre-packaged meaning. So, faced with that massive, open-ended void, what do?
We panic.
Pretty much. And we try to create meaning through physical, tangible objects. We try to anchor our fluid, shifting selves to solid things.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because why do our brains attach such a profound, heavy meaning to a basic commercial transaction? Why does buying a bag of coffee or a jacket suddenly feel like taking a personality test?
That's the perfect way to phrase it.
Think about the last time you bought a stack of books you haven't read. You bring them home, slide them onto the shelf, take a step back, and instantly you feel intellectual.
Right, you feel knowledgeable.
Yes.
Yes.
The mere act of buying the books temporarily fills a gap in your identity, and you completely bypass the fact that you haven't actually read a single page.
Oh, 100%.
Or think about opening an incredibly expensive high-end laptop in a busy cafe. It makes you feel serious. It makes you feel valuable. And, it has nothing to do with the processing power you're using to write an email. It's the feeling the object activates inside of you.
What's fascinating here is the psychological root of that exact feeling. Carl Jung observed that humans are constantly searching for an answer to this incredibly vague, almost paralyzing question.
Who am I?
Exactly. Who am I? Because there is no manual, no definitive checklist for your identity, your brain just looks for shortcuts. We use external material markers to define our internal selves.
So if I consciously choose to wear very minimal, unbranded clothing,
that external marker is doing heavy lifting. It's sending an internal message that says, I am simple. I am uncomplicated. I focus on the essentials.
Wow. It's like outsourcing your personality to your wardrobe. You don't have to do the hard psychological work of figuring out your complexities if your linen shirt and unbranded sneakers do the talking for you.
That is a great way to put it. And Sigmund Freud adds another vital mechanism to this whole process. He argued that our unconscious desires don't just express themselves in our dreams or our words.
They come out in our actions.
Yes, specifically our consumption. When you are standing at that cash register, you aren't just buying a jacket to stay warm. You are buying what you want to become.
That feels like the crux of the whole issue. We're swapping the cause and effect.
We really are.
Yeah.
It is the vital shift in perspective for anyone trying to understand their own habits. It is almost never a case of, I am an intellectual person, therefore I buy these books.
Right.
The mechanism is usually, I buy these books in order to feel like an intellectual person. Going back to Camus, he noted that these quick, frictionless transactions are incredibly effective at filling our internal emptiness.
It's a quick fix.
Exactly. Buying an aesthetic is a fast, highly efficient way to distract ourselves from the much more difficult existential work of figuring out who we actually are.
So we buy things to feel a certain way, to patch up that internal void. But that immediately begs the next logical question. Where do we learn the script?
Good question.
Right, like who decides that a specific dimly lit cafe with exposed brick is chill, or that a certain minimalist watch is sophisticated? We aren't born knowing that a specific logo equates to luxury.
No, we absolutely are not. Those associations are entirely learned. They're drummed into us through constant observation and relentless repetition.
So society just feeds it to us.
Pretty much. Pierre Bourdieu explored this deeply through his concept of taste. We all love to believe that our taste is purely personal, like it's a unique reflection of our refined individual palate.
Oh, for sure. We think we're so original.
Right. But Bourdieu showed that taste is largely a product of your environment, your family, and, today, the algorithm of your social media feed. You learn what to like based on the ecosystem you are exposed to.
Right, so if all my friends and the influencers I follow suddenly decide that chunky, brightly colored sneakers are the height of fashion, my brain slowly overwrites its own preferences until I organically feel like I want a pair.
Yeah, exactly. And Jean Baudrillard took that mechanism a step further. He argued that in modern society, we no longer consume physical objects at all.
Wait, what do you mean?
The object itself is secondary. What we are actually consuming are meanings and messages. A specialty pour-over coffee is not a beverage.
It's a vibe.
It is a lifestyle indicator. A specific brand of smartphone isn't a communication tool. It is a symbol that dictates whether you belong to a specific social class or a particular creative community. You are buying the message attached to the object, not the object itself.
But no one is forcing me to buy the pour-over coffee. There's no law mandating that I upgrade my phone. So how does society enforce this script if it's entirely voluntary?
This is where Michel Foucault's work is incredibly illuminating. He pointed out that power in modern society doesn't require physical force or coercion. It doesn't need to force you to do anything.
Okay, so how does it work?
Power operates by creating norms. Through advertising, subtle social cues, and media, society establishes what is considered normal, successful, or attractive. And because human beings are deeply social creatures, terrified of exclusion,
We just voluntarily fall in line.
we voluntarily, even happily, self-adjust to fit those norms. We police ourselves to make sure our choices align with the cultural script.
So what does this all mean? I have to push back here, because this paints a picture of everyone as like mindless drones. What about the people who are intentionally trying to break the mold?
The rebels.
Yeah, think about the indie rebel, the person who curates a highly unique, beautifully chaotic workspace. They've got the vintage brass lamp, the perfectly overgrown desk plants, the chipped indie coffee mug, the customized mechanical keyboard,
I can picture it perfectly.
right? And they post a photo of it online specifically to say, this is uniquely me, I do not follow the mainstream. Aren't they defining themselves entirely outside of that social script?
It's a brilliant point, but this is exactly where we run into one of the most fascinating paradoxes in modern consumerism. If you look closely at all of those unique desk photos on social media, you start to notice something glaring.
They all look the same.
They often share the exact same vibe. They use the same layout, the same warm lighting, the same carefully placed plans. They might be rejecting the mainstream corporate aesthetic, but they are conforming perfectly to a different culturally accepted standard of good taste.
Wow.
Yeah, they are following a very specific, highly recognizable script of alternative uniqueness.
Wait, so even my rejection of the mainstream is scripted. How do I know if I actually like my vintage brass lamp, or if the algorithm just trained me to like it as part of my Rebel starter pack?
That underlying friction you're feeling right now is exactly what Karl Marx described with his concept of alienation.
Alienation.
Yeah. Marx argued that modern systems of production and consumption don't just sell us things. They alienate us from our true nature and our true needs. Because we are constantly bombarded with these pre-packaged aesthetics, we lose the ability to sit down and ask ourselves a genuinely authentic question.
Like, what do I actually need?
Right, like what do I truly need to be comfortable or productive? Instead, we unconsciously ask, who should I be like? Which aesthetic should I adopt to signal my identity to the world? The mechanism of alienation separates you from your own authenticity.
Wow. We think we're being fiercely independent rebels, but we're just buying the uniform of a different, slightly cooler club.
Exactly.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because there's an inevitable crash that follows all of this. You follow the script, you buy the items, you arrange the vintage lamp on the desk just right.
You curate the perfect image.
Right, you achieve the look and you get the validation. So why does the satisfaction vanish so incredibly quickly? Let's talk about the existential drop.
Oh, it is a profound, almost universal experience. Describe how that drop actually feels.
It's that deeply uncomfortable moment, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after a big purchase. Let's say you buy the brand new, top-of-the-line smartphone. You peel the plastic off the box, you smell that new tech smell, the metal is cold in your hands.
It's the honeymoon phase.
Exactly. For 48 hours, you are riding this incredible high, you feel like your life is finally optimized. You are a guy who has his life together. But by week 3, that intoxicating feeling of being a new, better you has totally evaporated.
It just disappears.
The phone is still incredibly fast, the screen is still beautiful, but you're left staring at it, realizing you don't actually feel any different on the inside. You are still just you, with all your same anxieties and flaws, holding a piece of glass and metal.
And that drop is devastating because it ruthlessly exposes the illusion. Jean-Paul Sartre explained the mechanics behind this drop perfectly. Remember, human identity is inherently fluid, constantly changing.
We hate that.
We hate it. That fluidity is deeply terrifying to us. We desperately want certainty. So we try to turn our shifting, complex identities into something solid and fixed, exactly like an object.
Like the books on the shelf.
Right. If I buy the heavy, intimidating books, my intellect is no longer an abstract concept I have to maintain. It is now a tangible object sitting on a shelf. But it is a fundamental category error. Human beings are not objects. You cannot permanently freeze or define a human life by what it owns.
It's like trying to satisfy a hunger for meaning by eating a photograph of a meal. We are trying to solve a complex internal problem with a simple external solution, and the math just doesn't work.
Precisely. Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote extensively about this exact phenomenon. He observed that a person can have absolutely everything materially.
Like wealth and status.
Yeah, wealth, elevated social status, beautiful, curated possessions, and yet they can still feel completely agonizingly empty. The reason they feel empty is that they lack an internal foundation.
They built their house on sand.
Exactly. They have built their entire sense of self on external props, and when the novelty of the props wears off, there is nothing underneath to hold them up.
We see this play out in the real world constantly. Think about the person who endlessly upgrades their tech setup. They buy the new ultra-wide monitor, they get that fleeting high, they think, okay, now I am on the right track, now I will finally launch that business or write that novel.
But then a month later,
Right, they feel the exact same emptiness a month later, which leads them to need another upgrade, a new keyboard, a new chair. It's an endless treadmill.
or think about the person who invests heavily in their personal image.
Oh, like the perfectly curated clothes, the rare accessories.
Yes, but the moment they are alone in their apartment, sitting in a room with no one there to perceive or validate that carefully constructed image, they feel entirely hollow.
Which is terrifying.
It is. Which brings us to Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche argued that a truly strong individual, someone who has actually done the hard work of building that internal foundation Dostoevsky mentioned, does not need a mountain of external things to know who they are.
Their identity isn't fragile?
Right. It isn't fragile enough to rely on a jacket or a coffee order. And this leads us to the most terrifying existential question of all. It's the exact question we are actively trying to avoid when we go on a shopping spree.
What's the question?
If you stripped away everything you use to express yourself, the clothes, the car, the tech, the perfectly decorated apartment, would you still recognize who you are?
Oof. That is a brutally heavy question. If I don't have my stuff to speak for me, who's doing the talking?
Exactly.
So let's explicitly connect this existential crisis to
Yeah.
some practical action.
Yeah.
Because if this existential drop is real, and if alienation is constantly tricking us, what do we actually do? Is the only solution to throw everything we own into a dumpster and go live in an empty, white-walled room? Because honestly, even minimalism can become a toxic trap if you aren't careful.
That is a crucial point. How does minimalism become a trap for people?
Well, because if you aren't addressing the internal void, adopting minimalism just becomes another rigid identity you're trying to perform. You start feeling this intense, lingering pressure to perfectly maintain your sparse, empty desk.
Right, it becomes an obsession.
And it's not because having an empty desk is practically helpful for your workflow. It's because you are absolutely terrified of losing the label of I am a minimalist. You end up adjusting your entire life to serve an aesthetic of emptiness rather than the aesthetic serving you.
You're still trapped.
Exactly, you're still trapped by the objects, you were just trapped by the deliberate absence of them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the issue was never about the quantity of things you own. The problem isn't the jacket or the laptop or the coffee.
That's the relationship.
Yes, the problem is your relationship with those things. This is where the ancient Stoics offer a profound, incredibly practical shift in perspective. Take Seneca, for example.
He was wealthy, right?
Unimaginably wealthy. He was a Roman philosopher with vast estates, immense power, and beautiful things. He didn't abandon his possessions to go live in a cave, but he actively, constantly reminded himself of one rule: I own them, they do not own me.
But how do you actually prove that to yourself when you're surrounded by luxury?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say, my stuff doesn't own me, while sitting on a silk cushion.
Seneca knew that, which is why he put it to the test. He would periodically practice living like a poor person.
Really? How?
For a few days a month, he would eat simple, stale food, wear rough, uncomfortable clothes, and sleep on the floor. He wasn't doing this to punish himself. He was doing it to prove to his own brain that he could survive without his wealth.
So he was stress testing it.
Exactly. He was stress testing his internal foundation to ensure his inner freedom remained completely intact.
He was proving that if the existential drop hit, he wouldn't shatter.
Spot on. Epictetus, another great Stoic thinker, taught that objects themselves have absolutely no power over us. A car is just metal and glass. A shirt is just fabric. The danger is entirely in our attachment to them.
That panic belief.
Yes, the false panicked belief that says, without this specific item, I am not me. And Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who literally owned the known world, constantly reminded himself in his private journals that all external things are temporary.
They're just passing through.
Exactly, they're merely passing through our lives. We shouldn't anchor our souls to things that can break, fade, or go out of style.
It reminds me of the warnings from Sartre and Camus earlier.
It's the exact same warning, just centuries apart. Sartre warned us against becoming a character, adopting a rigid, cartoonish, perfectly curated definition of ourselves just to avoid the scary, messy uncertainty of real life.
In Camus.
Camus urged us to live in reality, to confront the void honestly, rather than hiding out in the fictional, comfortable stories we construct about our belongings.
So the Stoic strategy here isn't to take a vow of poverty and stop buying things altogether. It is to stop identifying with them. It's about breaking that mental link between what is in your shopping cart and your core value as a human being.
Precisely. Next time you are standing in that store and you are about to tap your card to buy something, ask yourself one simple question.
What's the question?
If I didn't have this, would I still be me? If you can honestly answer yes, then you are free to buy it. Because at that point, it is just an object. You are using it, it is not using you.
That is incredibly empowering. It flips the dynamic entirely from passive consumption to active, intentional living. So let's bring this all together. We have been on quite a journey today.
We really have.
We started by looking at how we seek psychological comfort in everyday transactions, trying to fill an internal void with external markers. We explored the mechanisms of how we fall into society's pre-written scripts of good taste and aesthetic norms, often confusing alienation for authenticity.
Yep, the indie rebel trap.
Exactly. Then we dissected the existential drop, that inevitable crash when the objects fail to fix our fluid identities. And ultimately, we learned that the Stoic art of living isn't about owning nothing, but about using things as tools, rather than relying on them as mirrors to show us who we are.
It is a vital reorientation of how we live in a consumer-driven world. And I want to leave you with the final lingering question directly from the core of what we've been exploring today.
Let's hear it.
It's a question worth writing down and genuinely asking yourself. Are you using the things you buy to express an identity you have already taken the time to understand? Or are you using them to artificially construct an identity you don't actually know yet?
Man, that is the perfect distillation of everything we've talked about. If the foundation is there, the objects are just tools. If the foundation is missing, the objects are just a disguise.
Exactly right.
Thank you for joining us for this conversation today. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought experiment to mull over on your own. It builds on everything we've unpacked, but takes it into a slightly different arena.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. We have talked a lot today about physical belongings. Your clothes, your car, the vintage lamp on your desk. But think for a moment about your digital life.
That's a whole other world.
It is. If you woke up tomorrow morning and your entire digital footprint was wiped completely blank, no carefully curated playlists, no perfectly arranged social media grids, no algorithm that knows your taste and feeds you the right aesthetic, would your sense of self disappear with it?
Wow.
Without your digital avatars doing the talking for you, what words or actions would you have to use today to show the world who you really are? Something to think about. Keep questioning the world around you, keep exploring, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.